Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're calling from. Welcome to the definitive MDSAP program update, Strategies for Global Compliance and Market Success with Brian Ludovico from Alvamed Consulting and Sebastiano Pane from TÜV Rheinland. I'm so excited to have these two join us, MedTech Leading Voice today, because they know a lot about the MDSAP program. They've been intimately involved with the program for a while. Tell us a little bit about your background, Brian. Let's start with you. Where are you calling in from?
Well, I'm actually located in Connecticut.
Oh,
So
cool. And your background with MDSAP goes back a ways.
quite a ways. Actually, I started with the notified body, auditing organization, a long time ago, and I became familiar with MDSAP, working with the governmental regulators from the individual jurisdictions at the very beginning of the program, and was fortunate enough to work with a lot of very smart people to implement the procedures and the program requirements throughout more than one company.
That's awesome. And Sebastiano, you're joining from Rome.
I'm joining from Rome, but working for our Cologne office. And yeah, I'm in the MDSAP program since the beginning, basically from 2018, first as auditor and certification office. And then 3 years ago, I took the role of global scheme manager for TÜV Rheinland. So therefore, I take care of implementing the program within our auditing organization and get in touch with the all regulatory authorities from the MDSAP program and sitting in the forum to adjust or to follow all the progresses in the program. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And for those of you who don't know me, Sean Smith, publisher of MedTech Leading Voice. I am dialing in from Constance, Germany this week. So happy to be here. If everybody could just go ahead and put in the chat where what country they're calling in from, that would be awesome. Give us an idea of who you are. We're going to have a few poll questions. Please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A function throughout the thing. We're going to try to get to your questions, but we have a lot of slides to cover today, so it might not happen. This is being recorded, and everybody who's registered will get a copy of the recording and possibly the slides. Are you sharing the slides, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. So let's get started. Thanks. Lots of people calling in from all over.
Great. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Sean. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome, everybody, from wherever you are. I'd like to initiate, and thanks to my colleague Sebastiano for joining as well. It was nice to get together with him. Sebastiano and I have known each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
And we'd like to bring you as much as we can on MDSAP as a global program. So go over the agenda first. We've got some a little bit of speaker introductions, a little bit about our organizations, and we'll go through what you see on the screen here as far as the MDSAP itself, the structure, a little bit about the audit approach. What we feel is a hot topic, of course, is the European Union situation, as we call it, and moving into some program statistics. And Sebastiano has been nice enough to bring out some actual auditing and program requirements and challenges that we see. Q&A at the end, as Sean said, if we can possibly get to that, and then of course, contacting us for further information. So a little bit about myself. I am the Director of Quality Affairs at Alvamed. I have been in the regulatory and quality business for over 25 years. I can't believe I can say that out loud now. I am a former notified body and auditing organization regulator. I actually worked for TÜV Rheinland for 21 years, where I cut my teeth on not only the notified body, but the auditing organization information itself. and participated in the development and implementation of MDSAP with the jurisdictional representatives, as I mentioned before. I will let Sebastiano also introduce himself.
Yes, thank you, Brian. As I just mentioned before, I'm currently the MDSAP scheme manager for TÜV Rheinland, sitting in Cologne office. And I have more than 20 years experience in basically auditing, of which for the Italian competent authorities, or auditing on behalf of the competent authorities, and 18 in TÜV Rheinland. I'm currently both working as a certification officer under the notified body, MDR, and for the auditing organization, and I'm still doing some operational things like auditing and certification, technical documentation review. That's why I wanted to bring today also a little bit of approach of the MDSAP, but also looking at the comparison with the notified bodies activities. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. A little bit about our organizations. Alvamed, we are a consulting organization, leader in the medical device area, having a number of different competency areas, including quality assurance and quality system development, regulatory approvals, clinical, and we have a team of experts that we work with across all areas of the globe. I have been with Alvamed now since August. I'm very pleased to be here. It's my first time into the consulting world after working in so many different parts of the industry, and it's coming along just nicely. And for TÜV Rheinland, Sebastiano, you can explain maybe a little bit about the differences very quickly about the different types of organizations within the umbrella of TÜV.
Yes, so TÜV Rheinland in general as an organization is a company that provides the services for the industry, and the medical group specifically within TÜV Rheinland holds several notification or accreditation. So and the different companies located worldwide holds different accreditation or notification. So the German location, so TÜV Rheinland LGA products, is the notified body under MDR IVDR, as well as under EN ISO 13485 under DAX, which is the German accreditation, while the TÜV Rheinland of North America is the AO, is the auditing organization recognized under MDSAP, while TÜV Rheinland UK is the UK approved body. This just to tell about the main accreditation. There are several others available in the various locations. Yeah.
And this is particularly important for you, the audience, because later on you'll see that there are some legalities that are involved with the notified body and the auditing organizations with respect to how audits are conducted, how technical documentation is reviewed. So it's important to know the players, even within a certain organization, and how they hold the different accreditations and what that means. It will hopefully become apparent. So what is MDSAP? MDSAP is a program, obviously, with the objective to manage, oversee, and develop a single audit, okay, that will allow a medical device manufacturer to have the needs fulfilled in several or multiple regulatory jurisdictions. So obviously, way back when this was developed, it was the information was to be able to get a single manufacturer to be able to get into multiple markets, not only quicker, but also at the same time. So in the world of changing regulatory, it was how can we leverage different things? How can we move forward? Obviously, at that time, the European Union structure had been out there with 27 different countries and this sort of CE marking passport across the different barriers, and other parts of the world, taking a look at how they would leverage different capacities, especially when it comes to countries that didn't have their own regulatory. Those countries were looking to, sort of borrow a way that maybe they could use a jurisdiction's approval for their own area instead of reinventing the wheel. Okay. The mission of this international consortium is to pool the technologies and leveraging resources, as I mentioned. Resources is obviously in all companies very important, and services to manage a sustainable single audit program for improving the oversight of safety and efficacy on a large scale, on an international scale. This is an international partnership. I wanted to make sure that everybody understands that this is not something that was solely developed by only the FDA, or it is just one country. It is a partnership amongst 5 jurisdictions in which all of the information was shared and agreed upon. At the present time, the FDA's website does house most of the information of the program. So if you go to fda.gov, you will see, if you type in MDSAP, you will see all the information for the MDSAP program. But it is based on everybody's participation, so equally amongst those organizations.
Brian, now might be a good time to find out where the audience is in their journey launching the first poll question. Launch, hopefully this will.
Excellent.
You know, what kind of organization they're coming from. Interesting.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I see our chat feature is moving up and up and up. That's fantastic. So our poll is out there. Certainly let us know. We enjoy seeing how many people are out there. So you can see the participating jurisdictions of MDSAP right now. There are 5 that are the Australia, Brazil, Canada, Japan, and the US. Again, all participating equally. And these are the actual governmental organizations that you see on the screen for each of those representative jurisdictions. Within each of these jurisdictions, the program, so the MDSAP program, and what I like to make sure of is that people understand MDSAP is a program. It is not an additional set of requirements. So I know that in many cases we sort of truncate our speech when we talk about things like, well, you know, did you pass your MDSAP audit, or, you know, did you follow the MDSAP rules? MDSAP does not add anything extra. These are all the regulations that are from those jurisdictions. MDSAP is simply a program that houses them within one area. So again, you may hear that speak from the MDSAP auditing organization or from the manufacturers. So in each case, the program is used in a different way by the different jurisdictions. And we're going to go into each one of those now and take a look at how that is used. So for Australia, and Sebastiano, you could step in here anytime you'd like. For Australia, yep. The certificates are used by the sponsors for the ARTG, which is the Registry of Therapeutic Goods. The MDSAP audit report packages are used to support the certificate application and or the changes to the application, and the outcomes are used for post-market activities. In this particular case, again, the certificates are used, the support packages are, the audit report packages are used to support the information, but that's typically what they're looking for, is the certificate that is issued. In Brazil, Anvisa will utilize the reports themselves instead of the certificates to grant initial GMP certifications. Sebastiano, would you like to say a little something about that?
Yes, so the GMP certification is required to obtain registration, so the publication on the Brazilian Gazette for the devices in class 3 and 4. So MDSAP is one of the means where Brazil can, Anvisa in particular, can add can confirm the compliance of the QMS requirements. And devices of class 1 and 2 per se do not need GMP certifications, but require indeed that the manufacturer have an effective QMS, but there is no verification done that this is satisfied. Of course, if a manufacturer wants and have already class 3 and 4 devices, may also include the class 2 devices and one in the scope of the MDSAP once it's needed. Yeah.
Right. So you can see the difference already between Australia and Brazil with the use of the certificate in one case and the uses of the audit reports in another.
Yeah.
Right. Now we move on to Canada. Canada is using MDSAP as the sole mechanism to demonstrate compliance under their medical device regulations. If some of you out there may remember the CAMCAS program that was initial to the Canadian market. This has replaced that obviously back in 2019. And within the regulations from Canada, Canada now requires a valid 1345 certificate issued under MDSAP. And you can notice here where I said 1345 issued under MDSAP. So again, we use the term MDSAP certificate, very colloquialism, but it is actually a valid 1345 certificate issued under the MDSAP program itself. And this is where you see the difference between maybe a certificate that was issued for DAX or the certification body. So you can have multiple 1345 certificates at one time, depending on how and which body they're issued. And at the beginning of the slides, we mentioned that different organizations, different legal organizations, are accredited to issue different types of certificates. In this particular case, the auditing organization would be the one responsible for issuing a 1345 certificate under MDSAP, not a notified body. So there's a difference there. In Canada, the certificate is required, of course, to apply for a device license, which is written into their program as well. And similar to other areas, class 1 devices are not required in this particular case to have a certified quality management system.
Brian, allow me to step in just one important note. It's important to understand that for Canada, MDSAP is the only option. So if a manufacturer wants to go to have a device license issued by Health Canada as a proof that they have a quality management system under ISO 13485 implementing Canadian requirements, MDSAP is the only option. Yeah. While for the other 4 jurisdictions, it's kind of optional, let's say, but for Canada is not.
Good point. Good point. For Japan, under the Pharmaceutical Medical Devices Agency, they will use the audit reports, again, very similar to the way in which Brazil uses the audit reports for as a coverage of the QMS requirements under their Ordinance 169 as far as granting product authorizations in that jurisdiction. And again, as we see, class 1 medical devices are not required of a certified quality management system. In the US, the FDA will accept MDSAP audit reports. Many of you who have MDSAP will know this, of course. This program is not affecting those audits that are for cause or compliance follow-up, or those for pre-market authorization. That's a very important notification. People are always asking, if I get MDSAP, do I ever see the FDA again? Yes, it's not going to replace the FDA in that particular case, but it will work with their work program. And there will be routine inspections that will be staved off, as you will. Outcomes of the MDSAP audits are, of course, analyzed. And again, in this particular area, some areas of exempt class 1 medical devices, as you all know, from the QMS. So the MDSAP structure itself, and a lot of people may not understand the structure within MDSAP, but MDSAP is made up of a Regulatory Authorities Council. You'll hear the name RAC here, which is basically the decision-making body of MDSAP. It consists of the regulatory authorities from each of those 5 jurisdictions, as we mentioned before, and they provide the oversight and the direction and the resources to support not only the MDSAP development, as it was, but the continued development and possible expansion. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides, with the main responsibilities being to monitor and modify the objectives, the requirements, the policies, and even the procedures. And again, if you go to the FDA.gov website and you look up MDSAP, you will see everything is transparent. You will see all of the procedures, all of the forms, all of the information. As a matter of fact, it even gives you the audit approach, which is all of the questions that you could ever be asked under the program by an external auditor of any kind and used for your own internal audit. So when I say completely transparent, it is completely transparent. The RAC also is the recognizing organization for not only other RAC members in a promotional sense, but official observers, affiliate members, and the auditing organizations themselves. So remember, we have notified bodies as a legal entity. We have auditing organizations under MDSAP, and we also have certification bodies. These 3 act independently in some cases, but also together in most cases. There are a certain number that have all of the accreditations, obviously, to serve their clients in a better fashion. The RAC, of course, has full access to what is the IT portal under MDSAP that is utilized, which is called the Regulatory Exchange Platform, or REPS. And what is REPS? I'm glad you asked. It is again, the IT platform for the exchange of information between the auditing organizations and the RAC. Sebastiano, maybe you could step in and give a little bit more about REPS and its usage here.
Yes, so REPS is this IT platform which is mainly operated by the auditing organization. So prior or after having performed an audit, so the auditing organization, when a manufacturer applies, will register the manufacturer to the platform to whom will be given an ID. And then after the audit, all the audit evidences, the main audit evidence like audit report, audit plan, list of devices, list of critical supplier, and so on, will be uploaded into the platform, and the audit will be closed. Then this platform is accessed by the 5 jurisdictions who will use the audit reports for their own regulatory needs. Like Brazil, for instance, Anvisa access it to review the report and grant the GMP certificates and so on. So this is the tool used for exchange of information. Yeah.
What was the website that was just mentioned?
Say again?
Say
What
again?
was the website that you guys just mentioned?
It's called REPS.
Oh, RAPS.
REPS, R-E-P-S, Regulatory Exchange Platform.
Right.
But it is not a website, and it is not accessible to the manufacturers.
Ah, understood.
Okay, this is the exchange of information sort of behind the scenes, if you will,
Right.
between the auditing organizations and the RAC or the participating jurisdictions.
Yeah, it's important to know that when a manufacturer participates to the program, the audit record will not only given into his hand and of course of the auditing organization. This is going to be shared among all the jurisdictions. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah. Okay. So we mentioned before the structure and an official observer. So, and there's different levels within the program. So there's the RAC, there's the 5 jurisdictional members, the founding representatives, as we call it. And then there is an official observer. So it is a regulatory authority that is not a member of the original 5 of the RAC, but who observes and contributes to those activities. So this information from the official observer is taken into consideration, obviously, And while not having equal authority, and again, I'm not one to read, you can read this on the slides, with respect to final decisions, which is the RAC, they do provide input. They do provide a cross-check, if you will, or a sounding board and alternatives to decisions and deliverables based on their information or based on what they've seen or based on what they'd like to see. Obviously, with official observers, they're trying to figure out if this MDSAP program will work best for them. So they would like to add information to the program. They utilize the audit reports or the certificates for evaluating compliance of medical devices within their own regulatory framework. And these official observers do actually have access to the reporting information under the IT portal, again, known as REPS. So it's an important distinction as an official observer under the program. So it's sort of, if you will, the second level under the RAC. An affiliate member, okay, is a regulatory authority, again, that is not a member of the RAC or an official observer that also is part of MDSAP, but does not participate in the decision-making processes of MDSAP. It also utilizes audit reports and certificates for evaluating compliance. And again, looking for their own regulatory framework within their own country, trying to figure out whether or not this program works best for them, trying to ensure that something that has been already developed is something that they could utilize as far as compliance and of course the overall goal with risk of safety and effectiveness. They do not, in this particular case, have access to the portal. So this is a difference between the official observers and the affiliate member, okay? Instead, the affiliate members are able to get a list of the MDSAP facilities for the manufacturers, including the dates that the audits took place, the AO, and they can obtain the reports and the certificates by actually contacting the manufacturers. So they're given the information to be able to go out and get to be able to get the information that they need from the manufacturer. So it's almost, instead of giving permission to get into the REPS database, they have to actually go to the manufacturer to get it. So again, a little bit of a level down in that respect, but this affiliate membership is growing each and every day, and we'll see that in just a second as well. So within the official observers, the European Union and the WHO have been official observers from the very beginning, and they continue to be. Again, the European Union situation we'll go over in a little while. Singapore is brand new, Sebastiano. This was what, as of
couple of days ago? Yeah.
So now the Singapore Health Sciences Authority is an official observer, sort of, if you will, upgraded from affiliate member, which they were for quite some time. And of course, the MHRA under the UK. And we all know what's going on with the UK and Brexit and all that. So now we're moving into a different compliance area within the UK as well. And under affiliate members, you can see here, we have 6 affiliate members at the present time, as noted on the right side. So, Sebastiano, anything to add here as far as?
Yeah, all these affiliate members, and the last added also a few weeks ago was Kenya, have been joined under the affiliate programs in the last couple of years. So this means that the number of countries who are looking at the MDSAP is growing constantly. So it's getting more and more important as a kind of international standard for the medical device approval of quality management system. Yeah.
Exactly. And remember, so with the pervasiveness of 13485 in a global spectrum, right? So you have this quality management system recognized for medical device manufacturers under 13485. And you've got that as the platform, as you will, for implementation of the regulations. Remember, 1345 is not a must, it's a nice to have, but it provides the platform for building on top of that the regulations of each area that come in. And that's the basis of the MDSAP program. And as other countries that are outside the European Union and the FDA, which have established programs for quite some time now, these other areas are now building upon that to add their regulations within that framework. So it slides very nicely into each area of that 13485. And as the confidence of the program builds, you can see here, more and more countries are looking to use that information within their own organizations.
Why don't we go ahead and launch the second poll question and then
Great.
take a peek at some of the questions that came in. One question that's interesting before you move on is, what advantages there to the medical device manufacturers from having affiliate members? I thought that was a particularly interesting question.
Say that again.
In the QA, it's what advantages there to the device manufacturers having affiliate members?
So the affiliate membership, the best part about that for manufacturers is to see that other areas of the world are interested in MDSAP, and they will be able to leverage the information that is done on an MDSAP audit or a certification, depending on the jurisdiction's acceptance, however they want to accept it. Remember, as an affiliate member, they're looking at this information to say, somebody else has done something to say that this is okay for me. And if they say, yes, this is a great concept, having that, similar to having a K number in the United States, that builds the confidence in that manufacturer, and that builds the confidence that their regulations were acceptable. So they may be able to leverage that and look more favorable upon an organization to be able to market products into their country. It makes it a little bit, it could make it a little bit easier to get into those countries by being part of the MDSAP program.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll a little early and share the results. So very interesting, and yeah, let's continue.
Okay, great. Well, under the concept of the program, which is probably not surprising. Again, you have the regulatory authorities and the auditing organizations and the manufacturers, and symbiotically in some way we have, obviously the auditing organizations which audit and certify the manufacturers. And then those auditing organizations do have a sharing of those reports under the REPS platform again. And of course, the RAs making regulatory decisions. One of the biggest keys here to note is that when something happens, good or bad, people know about it, okay? When you're under the MDSAP program. I think that a lot of manufacturers, and I've been asked, as I was an auditor for a very long time, and I'm sure, Sebastiano, you're asked all the time,
Yeah.
Well, if who's going to know if something happens? Under MDSAP, when you have an audit and there's there's information from that audit, governmental regulators share this information with each other. Let's not be surprised about that. Okay, so yes, your information about your organization is going to be known. So it is a sharing of information, so that there is an understanding that each jurisdiction knows what's happened based on what has gone on in the audits. Okay, obviously this comes into bigger play when there's a bigger problem, whether there's a high-level nonconformity, or there's an issue with a field action or things like that. So yes, there is country-to-country sharing of information. In the very beginning of the program, that was a concern of manufacturers, because if I get an audit somewhere, is that governmental organization going to go run and tell somebody else? So again, under MDSAP, there is a sharing of that information. So the audit criteria, again, just wanted to outline quickly, and you'll see in red here the latest update to the program. So the audit criteria, again, includes 13485/2016, which has been out for quite some time now. And each of the governmental regulations there, Canada adding part 1.1 of their SOR, and of course the other parts that play from Japan and the US and of course, Anvisa with their RDCs. So this is why many of you that have MDSAP certificates, or those of you that are going to go after MDSAP certificates, and again, this is all transparent on the website, you will see what will be specifically listed on your certificate. And Sebastiano, again, I think we go over this later, but
Yeah.
you know, when you are marketing or you are selling into a jurisdiction under MDSAP, you are not allowed to exclude that marketplace.
Yeah.
So. Under the audit approach, so again, many of you may have had audits already, but those of you that have not, there is a specific sequence under the audit approach that takes place. And again, the audit approach document, which you will also find on the website, outlines this. As a matter of fact, this is exactly where this is taken from. One of the biggest things to note is that it is methodical. There is a rational reason why we move through management and measurement analysis and design and production, with, of course, the links to, of course, the opposite, the right side of that screen there with the device marketing and authorization and facility registrations and adverse event reporting, obviously an ever-present topic in there. Each series has a number of audit tasks, and you'll find that a lot of your auditing organizations will go through in this sequence, whether they have one auditor or more, in a certain specific order. Biggest thing to note here is risk management, and I want everybody to take a look at this. Look at the gray around the whole thing. This is to accentuate not only what the 1345 has already talked about and what QSIT had talked about before, but to ensure that really what this all comes down to, besides safety and efficacy, which is what everybody's heard throughout their entire medical device life, is that the risk management is central to all of this and is fully encompassing of the audit approach in every aspect. So we see that in 1345 through product realization, as we call it, but risk management goes from the top management all the way down through your entire quality management system looked at equally.
Brian, let me say a few words on the sequence. So because this may appear quite rigid, recently the RAC have opened a little bit to flexibility, especially because the auditing organization and auditors were feeling a little bit too tight in this sequence. So meanwhile, have been introduced some flexibility again, but the core thing is that management related process and measurement analysis and improvement and the linked process need to be audited prior to the product realization process. So depending also on the size of the company, on the number of auditors, the auditing organization can audit, for instance, design and production in parallel after having reviewed, for instance, the first management and measurement analysis and improvement.
Excellent point.
Yep.
Excellent point. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
Thank you. Under the program, we do see a difference in grading. And again, where many people are typically used to major and minor, non-conformity grading from what was the GHTF, which Global Harmonization Task Force grading of N19. Non-conformities are graded 1 through 5, this numerical approach, which takes on a difference between quality management system and product-related information. We won't go too in depth with this because there's a lot to say. This could be a whole session on just this, but just to note that there are, in the gradation of this, there are grade 4s and 5s, which become increasingly more important in the sense of action that needs to be taken prior to the granting or the maintaining of certification. As you can see here in the last bullet item, when there are 3 or more grade 4s or 1 or more grade 5s, the AO is also required to report this to the RAC. So again, we talked a little bit about that transparency within the program and the understanding that when an audit result gets to that level, it is shared amongst all of the different governmental authorities to ensure that the information is known to each area, because product may be sold into any of those. And even if it's not, it may be sold into those areas. So that's an alert, if it will. So the EU situation. So Sebastiano, I'll have you step in here once.
Yes. So one question that often pops up is that what about EU? Because EU has its own system now with the publication of MDR and IVDR, made the requirements much stricter compared to what was before under MDD and IVDD. So they say, why then they are not utilizing it? So there are several reasons, even though later we will see that there are lots of efforts now to try to come one towards the other. So the main problems are the competence requirements, which are in the MDR, IVDR are defined in the regulation itself against the N4 document, which is valid for MDSAP. And basically, they are not aligned. So in MDR and IVDR, especially for the product specialists, are quite different and quite tight to satisfy. Yeah, and also the other big problem, as also we saw before, even for TÜV Rheinland, most of the biggest auditing organizations who are also notified bodies, but legally the AO is different from the notified body, right? So therefore, this is also a difficulty then for the notified body to recognize under MDR and IVDR audits done by an auditing organization. But this can be easily overcome for those auditing organizations who are also notified body. I will explain to you later. Yeah, and also it has not been defined how a notified body can use MDSAP report or certificate with respect to the product liability. Yeah, and under MDSAP is the product authorization is under the jurisdiction responsibility. So the device licenses are always up to the RAC. So the auditing organization is exclusively responsible for the audit, while a notified body is responsible for the whole CE marking, which means the product-related approval and the QMS part. So therefore, then comes the question, if a notified body accepts an audit report from an AO, maybe a different AO, then who is going to be at the end responsible for the product if something happens? This is another issue that creates problems, and also agreements. The different RAC under MDSAP have mutual agreements to operate under the MDSAP program, while the European Union is not considered as a single country, but a group of countries of the single European country. So which means that to implement certain requirements are required agreements among all of them. If you consider that there are 27 countries, is getting complicated. Yeah.
Just to accentuate that point. So right now, every of the 5 jurisdictions that are under MDSAP, each one has a contract with the other to ensure confidentiality of sharing information of a manufacturer. For the European Union, it wouldn't be just one contract with the US and one contract with Brazil and one contract with Australia. It would be 27 different contracts with each of the other 5. So you can see how legally this becomes a bigger issue with not just joining MDSAP very quickly for the European Union.
Yeah. Next, let's go to the next.
So,
yeah. So then what are the efforts now currently ongoing by the EU authority to kind of recognize MDSAP. So in 2020 was issued this MDCG 2020-14 guidance document, which was a guideline given to the notified body on how they could use MDSAP reports for only taking into account as an input for surveillance audit under the EU regulations. As a matter of fact, this didn't go much ahead. So for the time being, notified bodies are they are performing combined audits, MDSAP and EU regulation, rather than considering MDSAP audit reports as an input for the MDR surveillance audit. Another effort is the MDCG 2022-17, which is a position paper on hybrid audits. And from this point of view, MDSAP is much more advanced because it has already published a pilot program, which is documented in the P0036 procedure, which is publicly available, allowing the performance of hybrid audit. And hybrid audit is an audit when you have at the same time at least one auditor on site and other auditors or experts connected remotely. Europe published this MDCG, which is just a very general guideline position paper that says, yeah, we agree to hybrid audits, but there is not yet a guidance document that defines precisely the rules, how to apply it, how many audits can be on site, how many remote, and so on. But it's a draft prepared by an EMBOK group. It's about to come soon. Yeah, so we are expecting in the next few weeks to be published, and from what I have seen, it will be quite well aligned with the MDSAP. So this is another step to allow performing combined audit MDSAP EU regulation. The other thing is that they participated the last forum in Brazil in October 2023, and they will massively attend, including EU manufacturers, at the next forum, which is planned in Essen in Germany at the end of June 2024, in next month. So therefore, there is very goodwill to try to come in a good agreement on how to use or to harmonize the two programs, let's say. Yeah.
All right. So the biggest thing here, the takeaway, is that the European Union is becoming more and more involved with attending and watching and observing what's going on in MDSAP, so that, you know, maybe there's can be some synergy in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next one.
I want to launch all three before we run out of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is a fun question. How confident are you in your ability to meet the MDSAP requirements?
Yeah.
And,
excellent. And so as you do that, I'll go over the numbers here. We have over 6,800 facilities. That is up from 2017, as you can see. So we have a little bit of a meteoric rise in the program, with over 22,000 reports submitted, and over 59% of the audits coming in with at least one nonconformity. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a little bit more about the nonconformities, you know, the information about how many there were. There's also a 5-day audit notice report. A 5-day notice is a particularly more important notification that goes to each of the regulatory authorities for significant issues that have been noticed during audits. And as you can see, also there's been some issues, and not a lot, of course, with respect to the percentages, but there's been a couple of public health threat, fraudulent and counterfeit products. But again, one each, so it's not really a lot there. But the program does allow, as I mentioned before, for the regulators to talk amongst themselves about what the issues are happening with the manufacturers. Percentage of the sites by country, you can see here, the US leading the way in the 40%, but as you can see the other countries there, and of course the rest of the world. This is just a little bit of a slide to give you a flavor for how, who's applying under MDSAP and how it's being used. And with the nonconformities themselves, let's pull a little bit more data out of that and where these nonconformities are being cut. We said there's over 22,000 nonconformities. And as you can see, the bulk of those nonconformities are the grade 3 nonconformities. And for those of you who understand the grading system, obviously you'll see how these come about, which is from internal audits, CAPA, and of course, responsibility, authority, and communication. I don't think that anybody out there is surprised that CAPA is in that group. The internal audit is in there as well, because in many cases, there has been information that people may not be implementing a competency under MDSAP in their auditing roles. But as you can see, again, over 49% of the audits have resulted in at least 1 or 2 nonconformities in this particular sense. And now we can go into a couple of issues that have come up with some of the combined audits. Sebastiano, maybe you can take us through.
Yes,
we've got a few slides
just
to go. So maybe
to put the focus on the advantage of combining audits for MDSAP and EU regulation. So at least the big auditing organization, notified bodies, are doing that, including TÜV Rheinland. And the good thing is that with one audit, you will cover the MDSAP and of course the EU regulation, and which is much better than having 2 separate audits. And of course, in a combined audit, the audit time will be longer, but at the end will be once. Yeah. So how then the auditing organizations, notified bodies are doing this audit? So the auditing has to be done based on the audit model. So on the audit approach, by following the sequence we have just seen before. And the EU regulation, as a matter of fact, is treated as an additional jurisdiction. So, for instance, when we audit vigilance reporting, we will cover the requirement of the individual MDSAP jurisdiction, and then we will consider what's going on for Europe. In some cases, we plan usually in the individual sessions because it's more practical to be used, and under MDR, we don't need to follow the sequence. So detaching some sessions from the audit approach makes easier also the split of the audit team. But what are the challenges? Of course, the planning gets more complicated. There are different competency requirements. So for the auditing organization have to match the different requirements, competence requirements under the MDSAP and the EU regulation schemes. The review of the technical documentation under MDR and IVDR is planned separately, typically before the audit. And sometimes if times are not aligned, we do the audit under MDR, but then the certificate is issued 2 years later because the technical documentation is still ongoing. While for MDSAP, you don't have the bottleneck of the technical documentation, and so the audit usually close earlier, and then this creates problem in when to do the next surveillance audit. What are other issues? So is that found in MDSAP audit. So typically what Brian was saying before, the manufacturer applies to auditing organization only for those jurisdiction they would like Canada. They need Canada, I apply only for Canada. This is not allowed. Under MDSAP, the requirement says that a manufacturer has to apply for all jurisdiction without exclusion where they have active registration or where they intend to sell. This is clearly said in the FAQ document question 95. So therefore, this is one thing that auditing organizations are going to check during every audit. Next slide, please. Then this is also, Brian mentioned that, so I will go fast. So manufacturers need to be prepared when they approach an MDSAP audit, because once you are in, the AO have reporting requirements, even from stage one. This was one of the latest changes that were introduced. If the stage one is the initial phase where the auditing organizations verify the preparedness of the manufacturer to receive the stage two audit, which is the actual on-site, the real audit, let's say. If a manufacturer has active registration and fail a stage one audit, the auditing organization have to report such failure, and then the RAC will evaluate what to do with this information. What is, if it's severe or not, they evaluate the impact over the existing product registration. Similarly, if a manufacturer goes for a stage two audit after having passed a stage one, and then over the audit there are several non-conformities found under ISO 13485 or even under MDR, the auditor say, wait a moment, I want to stop it. I realize I'm not ready. Let's do it 6 months later. In MDSAP, this cannot be done. So all the planned tasks need to be fulfilled. And if this result in 3 grade 4 non-conformity or more, or 1 or 2 or more grade 5, then it's triggered the 5 days notice mentioned by Brian before, which means reporting to the RAC. So everybody will know that the audit has failed, and they will evaluate the impact on the existing registry authorizations. Next, thank you. Then other problem, this is a typical non-conformity we found, is about requirements or not having satisfied the adverse event requirements. One important thing to understand is that for Brazil, Australia, and Japan, the responsible person, or the responsible legal person to perform the reporting are the local, let's call it distributor. So it will be the Brazilian distributor, the Australian sponsor, and the Japanese MH, so the marketing authorization holder. So therefore, the responsibility of the manufacturer is to stipulate contracts with them and make sure that every adverse event it's made, which also involves product registered in those countries, are reported to the local distributors. And of course, the agreements, written agreements, need to be in place, define the mutual responsibilities. Also, the important thing is that the US and Brazil have these foreign vigilance reporting requirements, which means that if a vigilance case occurs, for instance, in Europe or in Canada, and the same on a product which is also registered in such countries, the manufacturer needs to evaluate whether those cases are also reportable in US and Brazil. And often manufacturers fail to make this evaluation. And in principle, field safety corrective action are to be reported in all jurisdictions where those products are registered, even if occurred in other countries. Yeah. Next. I'm trying to speed up because we are close to the end of the time. So yeah, just few words. MDSAP, in MDSAP, there is no statistical sampling, but the auditors during the audit make a rational-based sampling, which is based on certain priority criteria, especially looking for potential quality issues or high-risk product or processes where problems were detected. That's the focus. Next. Yeah, other failure, it's about reporting of changes, both QMS and process-related changes. It's important to know design changes need to be analyzed for reportability under the single country requirements, and same happens for for QMS. Typically, for QMS, it's the auditing organization that needs to be informed. For design changes are the regulatory authority. Often this is not done, and even the auditing organization are not informed. The sad thing is that at the moment we don't have a guideline under MDSAP or even the EU regulation to identify QMS significant changes. The only tool we have is an old MBOK document, the 2014-3, which was available under MDD and IVDD, but it still is a very valid tool which can also be used as a reference under MDSAP. Next. Other critical point is the technical documentation review. Under MDSAP, the auditing organization have to perform a technical documentation review according to the Annex 9, which is also needed under MDR, IVDR. We are talking about two different things. So because of the fact that under MDSAP, the regulatory authorities are approving the technical documentation, and therefore the auditing organization has only to verify that there is a technical documentation in place, is maintained, up to date, and it's addressing the requirements of the appendix of the Annex 1. So it's mostly a consistency check, and auditors dedicate 1 or 2 hours typically during the audit of the design and development process. Under EU, this is a really conformity assessment process, either based on sampling or to issue technical documentation assessment certificates. You can, just to give you some numbers, for the review of a technical documentation, even for a class 2A, may range between 3 to 5 days just as initial review, but this can be extended of several days depending on the complexity or the quality of the technical documentation. And because the review is under the sole responsibility of the notified body, yeah, and also the qualification of the experts who review the technical documentation under MDR, IVDR is much higher compared to the technical expert under MDSAP.
All right, so there's a significant difference here between, again, the legal authority under the notified body for the review of product technical documentation and that under MDSAP, especially when it comes to competency. So in many cases, it cannot be a one-to-one issue, Sebastiano, correct? So that in principle, if someone says, if I've got a technical file that's been reviewed by a notified body, wouldn't that suffice under MDSAP, for instance? There are different competency levels and different approvals of the auditors, basically, under each program that would have to be understood. So
right,
Sean, I know we're short on time here. We've only got a couple of slides left. How would you like to handle the rest of this?
Sean, you're on mute. Hmm?
Let's barrel on through.
All right, so
okay. So this is another question that often pops up. So Brian, I continue with that. Okay. It's what is then about medical device file under ISO 13485 clause 423? Is it the technical documentation? No, it's not. So, and this is the equivalent of a word that is typically used in US, which is the DMR, so the device master record, which is audited in MDSAP under task 6.16. This is basically the device master file, which is the medical device file, is the file containing the production and product specifications, but it's not the technical documentation as expected or as defined in the Annex 1 and under EU regulations. The DMR is just a part of the technical documentation. So this is also important to understand. For instance, the technical documentation under Annex 1 or under EU regulations includes all the test reports, the clinical evaluation, all the tests made on the type. Yeah. So this is important to be kept in mind. Next.
Right. And
yeah.
So again, this is more on the technical documentation and the QMS part as far as the contents. And if those of you that will look at the audit approach, and of course the Annex 1, you will see a section called technical documentation and how it is being used. A lot of programs around the world are using 1345, as I mentioned, as the basis, and looking into the European Union's mode of using technical documentation. But again, it is more of a consistency check rather than a product check under MDSAP, right?
Yes, and here just one last thing is the technical documentation in MDSAP as well in several other countries, including EU, is harmonized to the STED file. So therefore, the manufacturer typically has a good approach. They built technical documentation with modules where they include the country-specific requirements. This way, they will avoid to have multiple files containing the same information, yeah? Especially for those companies who goes internationally, yeah. Yes, this other question that often pops up. If I'm a medical device organization, which means I'm like a subcontractor, this organization doesn't want to go on the market with under its own name, can they apply for MDSAP? So the question is yes, but it's on a voluntary basis. Formally, the program is not open to this MDO. For managing our resources, so the RAC don't want at the moment to open it, but still under the it's on pure voluntary basis. For instance, if an MDO has a customer who has a MDSAP and they are asked to get a certification, they can get it. There are some limitations, and the approach from the various auditing organization is not harmonized, but this is going to be a topic we will discuss again at the next forum next month. Yeah, next.
That's all we have for today.
Okay,
So I apologize for going over by 5 minutes, Sean, but we were able to get through some of that. I think it was important for the public to know some of the, from Sebastiano's lips, some of the information that the auditing organizations are seeing out there as far as the pitfalls that some of the manufacturers might have and might account. But I hope that that was well received in that manner, and appreciate the time.
Yes, and thank you both, and everybody who stayed tuned. So